the birth beneath the Persian sky. The desert wind hums like an ancient song, low and endless, flowing across the rugged plains of Anshan, a small kingdom nestled within the mountains of Persia. You can almost hear the sand whispering against stone, the faint call of shepherds in the distance, the rustle of palm leaves under the moonlight. It is around the year 600 before Christ, and the world is divided between great powers. Assyria has fallen, Babylon rises in the west, and the Medes rule from the north. Yet here in this quiet land, under the vast and shimmering sky, something greater is being born. In a humble courtyard lit by flickering oil lamps, a woman cradles her newborn child. Her name is Mandane, daughter of Astyages, king of the Medes, and her child's name will echo across centuries, Cyrus, son of Cambyses of Anshan. But even as she holds him close, her heart trembles. For her father, King Astyages, has dreamt strange dreams. He has seen vines spreading from his daughter's womb, growing to overshadow his empire. He has dreamt rivers flooding the world, their source springing from his daughter's child. Alarmed, the king turns to his priests and diviners. They whisper that the child she bears is destined to overthrow him, that one day his own blood will rise against him. And so beneath the golden roofs of Ecbatana, Astyages gives a terrible order: the infant must not live. He summons his trusted general Harpagus and commands him to carry out the deed. The general obeys outwardly, but as he looks down upon the sleeping child wrapped in linen and innocence, something stirs within him. How can he, a servant of men, destroy a life the gods have chosen? So he turns instead to a herdsman named Mithridates, a simple man who lives near the mountains. He tells him to take the child and leave it in the wild, to let the earth and the beasts finish what men dare not. But destiny has its own designs. That night, the herdsman's wife gives birth to a stillborn son. Her heart breaks with grief when her husband brings home the royal infant, his tiny chest rising and falling. With each breath, she sees in him a miracle, a life returned, to replace the one lost. She pleads with her husband, and together they make a choice that will change history. They bury their own child in silence and raise the Prince of Persia as their own. In their humble home beneath the mountains, Cyrus grows among shepherds and herds, his laughter carried on the wind. He learns the call of eagles, the shape of stars, and the rhythm of the land. His world is simple, full of goats' wildflowers, and the smell of rain on stone. Yet even as a child there is something in him that others see, a calm confidence, a quiet authority. When other boys quarrel, he brings peace. When they play at kings and warriors, he commands without effort. And so the legend begins, not in palaces, but among fields and firelight. Years pass. Astyages, far away in Ecbatana, believes the child dead, but the gods never forget their promises. One day, when Cyrus is 10 years old, he is chosen by his playmates to be king in a village game. They obey his every command. One boy brings him water, another guards his flock. When a noble's son refuses to play along, Cyrus orders him punished for disobedience. The boy, humiliated and bruised, runs to his father, a high official in Astyages' court, who storms into the king's hall, demanding justice. When the king summons the boy who dared to strike a noble, he expects to see a shepherd's child, frightened and trembling. Instead, before him stands a boy with bright eyes and a calm, fearless voice, a boy who speaks as though born to rule. Astyages narrows his eyes. There is something in this child's bearing a flicker of recognition. He questions the herdsman and his wife, and slowly the truth unravels. The shepherd's secret is laid bare. This is no common boy. This is Mandane's son, the child the king had sought to destroy. The court falls silent. Even the torches seem to hold their breath. The king's first impulse is fury. He turns on Harpagus the general who disobeyed his order and condemns him to a punishment so cruel that its memory will one day ignite rebellion. Yet toward the boy himself something strange happens. Perhaps it is age. Perhaps it is fate softening its edge. Astyages cannot bring himself to kill the child twice. The dream, he convinces himself, has already been fulfilled. The boy has lived as a shepherd, ruled over peasants, and thus become king in a harmless child's game. And so against every instinct of a ruler clinging to power, he sends Cyrus back to his true parents in Anshan. You can almost see it now, the young prince riding homeward through the mountain, passes the wind catching in his dark hair, the horizon glowing with sunrise. He has no armies, no crown, no empire, only destiny walking beside him. In Anshan, King Cambyses embraces his long-lost son. The court rejoices, musicians play, and fires are lit across the hills. The Persians, still a small people under Median rule, whisper that the heavens have sent them a leader. Cyrus grows swiftly into manhood. He learns not only the arts of war, but the wisdom of kingship. He studies the gods Ahura Mazda, the Lord of Light, and the eternal struggle between truth and the lie. He listens to the priests who speak of Asher, the sacred order of the world, and vows that one day, if ever he wears a crown, it shall be a reign, guided by justice, not cruelty. The shepherd's son has returned as a prince. The prince will one day rise as a conqueror, and under the wide Persian sky, as stars drift like embers over the sleeping land, the boy who was never meant to live dreams of uniting nations. The desert wind hums again the same ancient song, carrying the promise of what is to come, the young prince and the shepherd's secret. The years flow like a quiet river through the valleys of Anshan. You stand now as Cyrus, no longer the shepherd boy hidden in the hills, but a young prince of royal blood, tall, observant, and filled with the calm strength of someone shaped by both hardship and destiny. The Persians whisper your name with reverence. The air seems different when you pass, like the world itself knows that history is stirring again. In the royal halls of Anshan, your father, King Cambyses, teaches you the ancient arts of governance. You listen intently, not out of ambition, but out of duty. You study the traditions of your ancestors, the Achaemenids, and the values they hold, dear honor, truth, and the sacred balance between king and people. The land around you hums with life. Persia is still a small kingdom nestled between larger powers. To the north rise the Medes, your grandfather Astyages' empire, vast and glittering. To the west lie the Lydians, and beyond them the great cities of the Greeks. To the east stretch endless steppes and deserts, home to wild tribes whose names the wind carries faintly. You grow up among men who believe in strength, but you learn early that true power lies in understanding, in knowing the hearts of others. You watch the farmers tend their crops, soldiers sharpen their bronze blades, and priests lift their hands toward the sacred fire of Ahura Mazda. At night, when the stars glitter cold and bright, you remember the shepherd who raised you, the man who once called you son. You remember his voice rough but kind, teaching you to move with the rhythm of the land. You carry his lessons with you, woven into your heart like invisible armor. But shadows still linger in the distance. Far to the north, Astyages, the Median king, rules from his mountain citadel at Ecbatana. Though the years have softened his body, his spirit remains hard as iron. He dreams still of omens of vines and rivers, and wakes in the night, muttering your name. To his courtiers he laughs and calls the prophecy a childish fear. Yet in secret he wonders if fate has merely been biding its time. Among his generals is a man who carries a wound deeper than any blade could inflict. Harpagus, the same man who once defied the king's command and saved your life. Astyages had punished him cruelly for his disobedience. The story whispered in dark corridors tells of a banquet where Harpagus was forced to eat the flesh of his own son. From that day, a quiet fire of vengeance burned in the general's heart. He serves his king still, but in silence he waits for the right moment to strike. That moment he knows will come through you. When you reach your 20th year, envoys arrive from Ecbatana. They bear gifts, silk gold and fine Median horses. Astyages, they say, wishes to see his grandson once more. You know it is not love that calls you north, but curiosity and calculation. Still you go. The journey from Anshan to Ecbatana is long, winding through dry plains and snow-capped passes. Along the way, you meet the many faces of the land you will one day rule. Traders from Elam, warriors from the Zagros Mountains, farmers, bowing to the sunrise. You see how every people worships in their own way, how every tribe dreams of peace, yet lives in fear of kings and conquest. When at last you reach Ecbatana, the Median capital gleams before you like a mirage. White walls, bronze gates and towers rising from the heart of the mountains. It is the seat of an empire built on force, glittering and proud, but underneath you can sense decay. The nobles are vain, the soldiers restless, the peasants weary. Even the air feels heavy with arrogance and age. Your grandfather greets you with forced warmth. His eyes are sharp, measuring. You bow deeply, and when you rise, your gaze meets his calm, unyielding. For a moment the court falls silent. They see in that single glance something unsettling, the meeting of the old world and the new. Days turn into weeks. You walk the halls of Ecbatana, speaking gently with servants, guards, and generals. You listen far more than you speak, and soon the whispers of the city find their way to you. Many in the court have grown disillusioned with Astyages' rule. The Medes are weary of endless tribute of cruelty disguised as strength, and among them one name is spoken in secret: Harpagus. He seeks you out under the pretext of loyalty. When he kneels before you, you feel the weight of history between you, the man who once saved your life, now standing as your ally. He speaks quietly, cautiously, his voice trembling like a reed in the wind. He tells you that the time of the Medes is ending, that the gods have chosen you to bring a new order to the world, one guided by wisdom, not fear. You listen. You do not speak at once. For though destiny burns brightly before you, you are not yet consumed by it. You wish not to destroy, but to renew. Harpagus places his hand upon his heart and says softly, "When you rise, my king, I will be your sword." That night you look upon the city from the palace roof. The wind carries the scent of cedar and smoke. Below, the torches flicker like stars fallen to earth. You think of Anshan, of your mother's voice, of the shepherd's quiet lessons. You think of the dream that haunts your grandfather and realize that perhaps it was never truly his dream at all. It was yours. You whisper a prayer to Ahura Mazda, thanking the wise Lord for the path that lies ahead. You promise that when the time comes, your reign will not be one of cruelty or fear. You will build a kingdom where all people, Mede, Persian, Babylonian, Jew, and Greek alike, will live under the same sky in peace. As you descend from the rooftop, dawn breaks over the mountains. The first rays of light fall upon Ecbatana, and it feels as though the city itself trembles. A prophecy once spoke of a child who would grow to overshadow the empire of the Medes. That prophecy is about to awaken. The Persian Uprising. The sun rises slowly over the plains of Persia, painting the horizon in amber and gold. You stand at the edge of the highlands, gazing across the rugged land that has been your home since birth. The wind carries the scent of dust iron and wild thyme. In the distance, your father's banners flutter the sigil of Anshan, a lion beneath a star. But this morning the air feels different. The world itself seems to wait. You have returned from Ecbatana with a calm mind and a quiet flame in your chest. You have seen the might of the Median court, its wealth, its decadence, its fading strength. You have seen the fear in the eyes of those who bow to a king too old to understand that his time is ending. And you have heard Harpagus' whispered vow, the promise that the Medes would stand with you should you choose to rise. The thought has settled in your heart like the beating of a war drum. The Persian tribes are many, proud and stubborn. For generations they have lived under the shadow of the Median Empire, paying tribute and sending soldiers to fight in foreign wars. They have bowed their heads but never truly yielded. Beneath their obedience lies a quiet resentment passed from father to son like an ember that refuses to die. When you begin to speak of unity, they listen. You travel from village to village, from fortress to hilltop, calling the clans together. You speak not as a conqueror, but as one of them, a man born of their soil, raised under the same harsh sun, shaped by the same winds. You remind them that Persia was once free, that their ancestors served no master but the gods and their own courage. At first, your words stir curiosity. Then they awaken fire. In the gathering fields of Anshan, the men of Persia come warriors, farmers, herdsmen. Some arrive with swords, others with nothing but spears of sharpened wood. They come because they believe in something they have not heard for generations, the promise of dignity. Under the open sky, you stand before them. The wind tugs at your cloak, the sound of hooves and murmuring voices surrounds you. You raise your hand, and silence falls like a soft command. Brothers of Persia, you say, your voice steady as the mountains our fathers bent their necks, so that the Medes might wear crowns of gold. We have served them in silence, but today Ahura Mazda has spoken. The time has come for light to rise over the darkness of tyranny. A cry rises from the crowd, deep and wild, the cry of men who have remembered their pride. Word travels swiftly across the plains. Messengers ride through the night, carrying your name to every corner of Persia. Villages light torches in secret, and old warriors sharpen their blades once more. In Ecbatana, Astyages learns of the uprising. His courtiers whisper of rebellion, of a Persian prince who speaks of freedom. The old king laughs, at first dismissing the reports. A shepherd's son, he scoffs, dare challenge the throne of Media, but fear soon seeps into his voice. He calls for his generals. Bring me my army, he commands. I will crush this foolish boy before the snow melts from the mountains. But fate as ever weaves its threads in silence. Harpagus, now as senior commander of the Median army, rides out at the head of his troops, yet his loyalty lies not with the king who wronged him, but with you. Quietly he sends word ahead, warning you of the king's movements, advising you where to strike and where to wait. The first clash comes near the foothills of Pasargadae. You lead a small force Persians with simple armor spears and courage. Before you stands the might of Media, its banners high and its armor gleaming in the sun. For a moment your men falter, gazing at the sea of bronze and horsemen. You ride to the front, the dust swirling around you. Your horse stamps the earth as you lift your spear. Do not fear their numbers, you tell them, for the gods are not with those who rule by cruelty. They walk beside those who fight for justice. The battle erupts in thunder and smoke. The Medes charge their chariots, cutting through the dust. But Harpagus's secret orders weaken their ranks, confusion spreads, and soldiers begin to lay down their arms rather than strike their kinsmen. The Persians press forward, driven not by rage, but by faith. When the dust clears, the ground is littered with broken shields. The Medes retreat not defeated by might, but by the truth that their cause has withered. Over the next months the war spreads. Villages that once paid tribute to Ecbatana now raise your banner. Armies that once marched under Astyages turn their allegiance to you. Even some Median nobles, seeing the balance of destiny shifting, swear loyalty to the rising sun of Persia. Each victory strengthens your resolve. Yet in the quiet of your tent at night you feel the weight of what you are building. Empire, you realize, must be more than conquest. It must be founded on principles that outlive the sword. You remember the teachings of Ahura Mazda, the eternal struggle between Asher truth and Druj the lie. You vow that your rule will stand for Asher, for the harmony of men under divine law. Then comes the decisive moment. Astyages gathers the remnants of his army for a final stand near the capital of Ecbatana. He rides at the front, his crown gleaming, his voice filled with fury. He believes the gods will favor his vengeance. But when battle is joined, the Medes no longer fight for him. Many lower their swords rather than shed the blood of their Persian brothers. In a single day, the Median Empire, ancient and proud, crumbles, not from defeat, but from the collapse of its faith in its king. At dusk, your banners rise over Ecbatana. The gates open, not to fire or siege, but to the sound of drums and prayers. Astyages grey and trembling is brought before you. You look upon him, the man who ordered your death before your first breath, and you see not a tyrant, but an old man frail, before time's judgment. Your generals wait for your command, expecting vengeance, but you shake your head. The wise Lord teaches mercy, you say softly. The war is over. Let no man raise his hand against the fallen. And with those words, you end an age. That night, the fires of victory burn across the hills. The Medes and Persians, once divided, now share the same bread, the same songs. You walk alone beneath the stars, your cloak whispering in the wind. The war is won, yet the journey has only begun. For beyond the mountains lie kingdoms greater still, Lydia, Babylon, and the lands beyond the Tigris, waiting for the dawn of a new empire. The shepherd's son has become the conqueror of kings. The world will soon know the name Cyrus the Great. The fall of Astyages. The chill of early dawn hangs over the mountains of Ecbatana. The golden roofs of the city glimmer faintly beneath the pale light, and the scent of cedar drifts through the cold air. The war between Persia and Media is over, yet the echoes of its last cries still linger in the wind. You, Cyrus, stand before the conquered city, your cloak drawn tight against the morning cold. Around you, the camp murmurs with the weary relief of victory. Soldiers tend to their wounded horses, drink from shallow streams, and the fires of the night fade to grey embers. Above it all rises the capital of the Medes, once a symbol of might and fear, now silent beneath your gaze. The banners of Persia, newly stitched with gold thread, ripple proudly from the towers. It is a sight no man before you could have imagined, a Persian prince standing as master of Media itself. The gods have spoken, and their will has been made clear. Within the royal citadel, King Astyages waits. The years have carved deep lines across his face, and the fire that once burned behind his eyes has dwindled to ash. Around him, the grand hall of the Medes lies quiet. The tapestries depicting his conquests hang in tattered silence, their colours faded, their meaning lost. He knows you are coming. When you enter, the guards bow their heads, unsure whether they stand before a conqueror or something more. You walk slowly across the stone floor, your steps measured, echoing in the vast chamber. Astyages looks up, and in that instant the long circle of fate closes. This is the man who feared your birth, who sought to end your life before it began, the man whose cruelty drove his own people to betrayal. Yet before you now he is but a shadow of the king he once was. For a long moment neither of you speak. The air between you is heavy with the weight of unspoken years. At last he breaks the silence. So it is true, he mutters, his voice hoarse and trembling. The dream has come to pass. The child I sought to destroy has become my conqueror. You bow your head slightly, not in mockery, but in respect for the chain of destiny that has brought you both here. It was not your dream, grandfather, you reply softly. It was the dream of the world that one day peace might grow where tyranny has ruled. Astyages studies you with weary eyes, searching for cruelty and finding none. You would spare me, he asks at last. Yes, you answer. For what vengeance brings only blood, justice may bring peace. You have lost your crown, but I will not take your life. You shall live not as a king, but as a reminder that mercy rules stronger than fear. The old man lowers his head. A tear falls silently upon the cold marble floor. You are greater than I ever was, he whispers. Outside the palace, the city stirs with uncertainty. The Medes have long feared the wrath of conquerors, yet as Persian soldiers march through the streets, they do not burn or plunder. Instead, they distribute grain, tend to the wounded, and restore order. The people expecting ruin find instead compassion. You walk among them in simple robes, without crown or jewel. The mothers bow, the elders raise their hands in blessing. To them you are not merely a victor, you are a deliverer. The Medes begin to speak your name with awe and gratitude, and so through mercy you achieve what no sword could have won the hearts of your new subjects. Within days the kingdom is reborn. The armies of Media swear allegiance to you, and for the first time in history, the banners of Persia and Media fly together as one. The two peoples, long divided by blood and pride, are now united under your rule. You establish a new capital at Pasargadae near the sacred plains of your ancestors. There, in the heart of Persia, you begin to shape the foundation of what will become the Achaemenid Empire, an empire not of conquest alone, but of harmony. Your counselors gather before you Harpagus, loyal and unbending, Mazares, skilled in the art of administration, and Gobryas, wise beyond his years. Together you begin to design an order unlike any before one built, on fairness, on faith, on the belief that every man, regardless of his land or tongue, can serve truth under a just king. You decree that the laws of every conquered nation shall be respected, their gods honored, their temples preserved. You will not force men to abandon their traditions. Instead, you will give them reason to trust in yours. A king's might, you tell your council, is not measured by the number of lands he conquers, but by the peace he leaves behind. The words spread across the empire like sunlight after rain. But even as Persia celebrates, your heart remains restless. You know this victory is not the end, it is only the beginning. To the west, the kingdom of Lydia gleams with gold and ambition under King Croesus. To the south, the fertile plains of Babylon rise in splendor, ruled by Nabonidus, a king distracted by idols and prophecy. The world beyond your mountains waits, and you, Cyrus, can feel the call of destiny in every whisper of the wind. Still before the next campaign, you travel one last time to the quiet hills of your childhood. There among the herds and the wild thyme you find the old shepherd who once saved your life. His beard is white now, his eyes dim, but when he sees you, he falls to his knees in wonder. You lift him gently and embrace him. My king, he murmurs, the gods kept their promise. No, you reply. Smiling you did. You order that he and his family be granted land and honor to live in peace for all their days. It is a small repayment for a debt no king could ever fully repay. As the sun sets behind the Zagros mountains, you ride back toward your new empire. The air hums with the sound of unseen wings. The gods, perhaps watching the child they once protected, fulfill his purpose. The empire of the Medes has fallen. In its place rises something greater, the dawn of Persia, and the beginning of an age the world will never forget. You are no longer a prince of Anshan. You are Cyrus, king of kings, chosen by the heavens, beloved by men, destined to bring light where others brought fire. And as the night deepens, the stars shimmer above you, silent witnesses to the birth of a new world. The vision of empire. The fires of war have faded, and a rare stillness settles across the land. The banners of Persia and Media now flutter together in the high winds above the Zagros mountains, crimson and gold against the endless blue. You, Cyrus, ride through the heart of your new dominion, past olive groves and fields of barley, past villages where the people bow with joy rather than fear. Everywhere you go, you hear the same word whispered, Shahanshah, King of Kings. Yet within you there is no pride, only purpose. The Medes once ruled through fear and tribute, demanding obedience as the price of peace. You have seen what fear builds an empire of trembling hearts, hollow and doomed to fall. Yours must be different. You dream not of chains, but of unity. not of slaves, but of citizens who will call your empire home. And so as spring dawns upon the mountains, you begin to shape your vision, a new order for the world. From your throne at Pasargadae, you summon the wisest men of every nation, Persians, Medes, Elamites, and Assyrians. They gather in the great hall, a place of stone and sunlight, where pillars rise like trees toward the heavens. You stand among them not as a tyrant, but as a listener. You ask how their peoples live, what laws they follow, what gods they serve. Some worship Ahura Mazda, the wise lord. Others bow to Marduk, to Shamash, to Ishtar. Still others follow the stars and the fires or the spirits of the rivers and fields. Where another ruler might see division, you see harmony, a tapestry of belief, each thread strong because it is unique. The gods have many names, you tell them gently, but truth is one. Let every man honor the divine as his heart commands. Let none be punished for the way he prays. It is a revolutionary decree, one no empire before has dared to make. The room falls silent, and the priests of every tongue bow their heads. You have planted the first seed of tolerance, and it will grow into a forest that shelters millions. Yet empire cannot live on peace alone. You turn your mind to order and law, to the foundations that will endure beyond your lifetime. You divide your territories into provinces, each governed by a satrap, a noble who answers to the king yet rules with justice over his own people. You choose these men not for birth, but for merit. They must be wise, honest, and loyal to truth above power. You establish the royal roads, long, straight paths that will one day stretch for thousands of kilometers, linking every corner of the empire. Along them, messengers ride with news merchants, trade their wares, and soldiers march to defend the peace. For the first time, Persia breathes as a single body, its pulse steady, its purpose clear. Speed is the soul of order, you tell your captains. If the king's word cannot reach his people swiftly, then his justice cannot live. In these years of calm you walk often among your people unguarded. You sit with farmers at their fires, share bread with soldiers, listen to the songs of traveling poets. They do not see you as distant or divine. You are their shepherd king, one who remembers the feel of soil beneath his hands and the simplicity of the herdsman's life. At night, when the stars scatter across the black sky, you look to the sacred flame burning in your temple, the eternal fire of Ahura Mazda. The priests tell you that as long as that flame burns truth, Asher will prevail over the lie Druj. You kneel before it and whisper a vow. Let my reign serve the light. Let my empire be a bridge between nations, not a sword dividing them. The flames flicker as if the heavens themselves have heard you. But not all are content with peace. To the west, in the rich land of Lydia, a man of gold and pride watches the rise of Persia with unease. King Croesus of Sardis, famed for his wealth and wisdom, gathers his seers and asks whether he should attack you before your power grows too great. The oracle of Delphi, far across the Aegean Sea, gives him an answer. If Croesus goes to war against Persia, he will destroy a great empire. The words please him, though he does not see that it is his own empire the gods have named. Croesus begins to forge alliances with Egypt, Babylon, and the cities of Greece. The world beyond your borders stirs restlessly, unsure of how to face this rising sun from the east. You hear their whispers, carried through the trade routes, Cyrus the just king, the merciful conqueror. To some, those words bring admiration, to others, fear. Yet you do not rush to war. You believe that strength is not proven by conquest alone, but by restraint. Still you know the time will come when the sword must once again leave its sheath, not for glory, but for the protection of the peace you have built. One evening you stand upon the walls of Pasargadae, the capital you have raised from the dust. Around you stretch the gardens you have ordered, planted groves of date palms, pomegranates and cypress trees, watered by canals drawn from the mountains. The air hums with life. The scent of flowers mingles with the murmur of fountains. Your wife Cassandane joins you, her voice soft as wind over stone. You dream of an empire, she says, but what do you dream it for? You smile faintly, gazing at the stars. For peace, you answer. For the day when no man shall fear the stranger at his door, when the sword sleeps and the scribe and the farmer share the same sun. She places her hand in yours. Then may Ahura Mazda guide you. For such dreams belong not to men, but to those who would change the world. And in that quiet moment you know that your dream is no longer your own. It belongs to all who will live under the light of Persia, to every temple, every hearth, every heart that beats within your growing realm. The vision has taken root. The empire has been born not through blood, but through the promise of a better world. But destiny, ever restless, will not let you rest long. To the west, Lydia stirs. Its gold and ambition glitter like the lure of the sun. Soon the trumpets of war will call again, and the roads of empire will lead you beyond the mountains toward the lands of kings and oracles and the thunder of prophecy fulfilled. The western campaigns, the winds of spring sweep across the empire, stirring the banners above your capital at Pasargadae. The world you have built, calm, ordered, and just now faces its first great test. To the west lies the kingdom of Lydia, rich, beyond imagining, its capital Sardis gleaming with temples, marble and gold. Its ruler, King Croesus, is known across the world for his fortune and his folly, for he believes that wealth is power and power eternal. But Croesus fears what he cannot buy: your growing influence, your reputation for justice, and the devotion of your people. He hears that Persian merchants trade freely in his markets, that even his own subjects whisper your name with admiration. The oracle of Delphi has spoken, and though the words were veiled, Croesus takes them as a sign that he must strike before Persia rises higher still. Thus the Lydian king begins to gather allies, Egypt to the south, Babylon to the east, and Sparta across the sea. He dreams of a great coalition, an iron circle to crush you before you can extend your light beyond the mountains. But you, Cyrus, are already watching the horizon. You receive word from your spies in Sardis golden coins minted with the image of a lion and a bull. The symbol of Lydia's pride are being melted into weapons. Croesus marches east, his army of cavalry and mercenaries crossing the Halys River, the ancient border between Lydia and Media. You ride to meet him, leading an army forged not of one nation, but of many Persians, Medes, Elamites, and men from the newly freed provinces who have sworn to your rule. The fields of Cappadocia stretch wide before you, and there beneath grey clouds and the cry of vultures the two armies meet. At first the battle is fierce. The Lydians charge with heavy cavalry, their armour shining, their horses armoured in bronze. The Persians, lighter and faster, give ground, drawing them farther into the open plain. You ride along the front lines, your cloak fluttering, your eyes calm. Do not fight their strength, you tell your commanders. Let them charge the wind. The wind cannot be broken. At your signal, the Persians wheel aside and the Medes advance with shields raised. Archers loose their arrows, darkening the sky. The Lydian line falters just long enough for your cavalry to strike from the flanks. When night falls, neither side claims victory. Croesus retreats to Sardis, confident that winter will end the campaign. He dismisses his mercenaries and returns to his palace, sure that no army could survive the cold Anatolian storms. But you are not like other kings. As snow begins to fall across the plains, you gather your men and speak to them by torchlight. The flames dance in their eyes as you raise your hand. Croesus thinks we will sleep through the winter, you say, but the lion that sleeps too long forgets the hunt. We will move now through the storm, through the night, through the mountains. Let him dream of spring. We will wake him with thunder. Your words ignite their hearts. Through snow and darkness your army marches westward. You move swiftly unseen, crossing rivers, swollen with ice, scaling ridges no army has dared to cross. The people along the road open their gates willingly. They know your justice and they fear not your soldiers. When you reach Sardis, Croesus is unprepared. His walls are high, his gates strong, but his army scattered. Still he fights bravely, rallying his men as the Persians encircle the city. For 2 weeks the siege tightens until one evening, as the sun sinks behind the mountains, a Persian soldier named Hieroides notices a Lydian guard lose his helmet and climb down the wall to fetch it. The soldier follows the same hidden path up the cliff. That night, under cover of darkness, your men climb where none thought possible. When dawn breaks, the gates of Sardis swing open and your army pours in. The city falls without ruin, its people spared. Croesus is brought before you bound but unbroken. His gold, his jewels, his fabled treasures all lie at your feet. But you do not see a defeated king. You see a man blinded by pride, a mirror of what any ruler might become if he believes himself above fate. He looks up at you and says quietly, "In my youth I was told to look upon the happiest man in the world. I thought happiness was wealth. I see now that I was wrong." You regard him in silence, then speak. "Gold can build walls, but not peace. Wealth can buy soldiers, but not loyalty. The measure of a king is not what he owns, but what he gives." Croesus bows his head. You spare his life and order that he be treated with dignity. He becomes in time one of your advisers, his wisdom tempered by humility. From him you learn much about the lands of the West, their people, their gods, their ambitions. After the conquest of Lydia, you turn to its people. You issue proclamations of amnesty, restore their temples, and allow their merchants to trade freely once more. The roads from Sardis become arteries of prosperity, carrying goods and ideas between East and West. For the first time in history, the world begins to feel connected not merely by conquest, but by cooperation. The Greek cities across the Aegean send envoys and gifts seeking friendship rather than war. The news spreads far and wide. Cyrus the Great does not conquer to enslave, but to unite. One evening, as you ride along the river Halys, the moon reflected in the dark waters, you think of how far your journey has brought you from the shepherds' fields of Anshan to the golden palaces of Sardis. Yet within your heart there is no rest. For to the south lies Babylon, the ancient city of gods and kings, proud and unyielding. Its towers rise above the plains like a challenge to heaven itself. Your advisers warn you of its strength, of its double walls and moats, its riches and armies. But the whispers of Babylon's people tell a different tale of a tyrant king who has turned away from Marduk, the city's god, and of priests who pray for deliverance. You listen in silence, the river's current murmuring beside you. Babylon, you say, softly. If it falls, it must not be by ruin, but by release. Let it be known, not the conqueror, but the liberator comes. The night wind stirs the reeds, and the stars gleam above the water. You feel destiny calling again, beyond the mountains, beyond the deserts, toward the city where even the gods hold their breath. The riches of Sardis and the roads of empire. The winter mist drifts softly over Sardis, the once golden capital of Lydia's city of marble music and merchants, is quiet now but not broken. Smoke rises from hearths, not fires of ruin. In the palace courtyard, craftsmen hammer bronze once again. Children laugh in the marketplace, and the temple bells ring for the gods who, like their people, have found new peace beneath your rule. You, Cyrus, stand upon the citadel's high wall, gazing over the wide plains of Western Asia Minor. The air is crisp with the scent of rain and earth. Beneath your feet the stones of Sardis gleam wet and clean, washed of the dust of war. This is victory, not the glory of destruction, but the stillness after mercy. The Medes and Persians who followed you here have grown accustomed to your way of ruling. They no longer expect fire and tribute. Instead, they see how your justice binds people more tightly than chains ever could. Lydia has not fallen, it has joined. King Croesus, once your enemy, now walks beside you. His crown is gone, replaced by a simple band of silver, yet he carries himself with quiet dignity. In time, he has become something few kings ever achieve, a man freed of pride. He gestures toward the distant markets. You have taken my city, he says, but you have given it life. When I was king, the people served gold. Under you, they serve peace. Tell me, Cyrus, how long can peace endure? You pause, watching the clouds drift above the mountains. As long as justice breathes, you answer. When a ruler forgets that he serves the people, peace withers. But when he remembers, when he listens, peace becomes the root of empire. Croesus smiles faintly. Then you have built an empire unlike any before, but it will not remain yours forever. No man can hold the world for long. You nod. No, you reply softly, but if I rule with wisdom, then the world will remember why it trusted me. That is enough. Under your command, Sardis becomes more than a conquered city. It becomes the western heart of the empire. You establish new laws of trade and travel. Roads are repaired and extended, linking the mountains of Media to the shores of the Aegean. Couriers ride from Sardis to Susa, carrying messages sealed with your royal emblem, a winged lion beneath the rising sun. The merchants call it the Royal Road, and they bless your name at every milestone. Inns and way stations are built for travelers, water for their horses, bread for their tables. It is said that a man can travel from the Aegean to the Persian Gulf in 15 days under your protection. For the first time, Asia breathes as one body, its veins pulsing with trade knowledge and faith. You order that tolls be fair, that bandits be punished, and that travelers be free to pass regardless of tongue or origin. When a Greek merchant complains that Persian guards speak harshly to him, you listen patiently and send a new decree. A man's worth is not in his speech, but in his honesty. Let all who travel in peace be protected by the king's law. From Sardis to Persepolis, from Babylon to the edge of the Indus, the words of your decree echo. In time, the Lydians begin to trust your governance. Their musicians fill the temples again, their artisans carve stone and silver for the new empire, and their scribes teach their alphabet to Persian administrators. The blending of cultures becomes your greatest strength. At your court in Sardis, Greek, envoys stand beside Median generals, Babylonian astrologers beside Persian priests. The world that once divided east and west begins to find common language. Each morning you hold court beneath a canopy of cedar beams and golden cloth. Petitioners come from every corner of your realm, farmers with disputes, traders seeking new routes, elders requesting judgment. You listen to each with patience, your voice calm and firm. When two men quarrel over land, you remind them that the earth belongs not to the victor, but to those who honor its fruits. When a merchant accuses a tax collector of greed, you summon the man yourself and have him swear his honesty before the sacred fire. And when the people see that even governors must answer to justice, they begin to call you not just King of Kings, but Father of the Empire. At dusk you often walk through the gardens of Sardis. The flowers bloom in colours unknown to Persia, violet and blue, glowing in the fading light. The sound of fountains reminds you of the streams of Anshan where you once played as a child. You find peace here, but it is not without reflection. You know that the burden of empire is heavy. Power, if left unchecked, grows restless. Wealth, if hoarded, corrupts. You think of the shepherd who raised you, of his simple wisdom, that every man, no matter how high, must remember the earth from which he came. So you keep your throne plain, your robes modest, and your feasts humble. You dine with your soldiers, walk among the workers building the royal roads, and reward effort rather than birth. Your counselors sometimes whisper that such humility is unbefitting a king, but you know better. You have seen what becomes of rulers who believe themselves gods. You remember Astyages and the ruin that pride brought to him. In the spring of the following year, you summon Harpagus, your old ally, to Sardis. His eyes still carry the quiet fire of loyalty, though the years have silvered his hair. You embrace him as a brother and speak of the empire's future. The west is secure, you say, but beyond it lie lands still rich in people and promised cities of marble rivers that flow into the sea kingdoms that know neither Persian wisdom nor law. The time will come when our roads must reach farther still. Harpagus nods gravely. And when that time comes, will you conquer them by the sword or by the heart you smile, whichever they understand first? Soon the next campaign will call you south to the legendary city of Babylon, whose ziggurats touch the sky and whose gates gleam with lapis lazuli. The priests of Marduk whisper your name, already calling for liberation from their tyrant king, Nabonidus. As the sun sets over Sardis for the last time before your departure, you stand at the gate of the citadel. The wind carries the sound of distant hammers as roads stretch west and east, veins of empire glowing under the evening light. You look back once more upon the city. You spared the city that taught you wealth is fleeting, but wisdom eternal. The fires of Sardis burn bright, but they do not burn in ruin, they burn with life. You mount your horse and turn toward the south. The horizon glows red like the forge of destiny itself. Ahead lies the heart of Mesopotamia, the city of kings and gods, the final test of all your ideals. Your men await your command. The drums of Persia beat once more. Toward the Babylonian gates, the desert wind returns whispering through the reeds of the Tigris, carrying the scent of faraway rivers and temples. You, Cyrus, now stand at the edge of another world, the ancient land of Mesopotamia, cradle of kings and gods. The banners of Persia ripple behind you, golden lions glinting in the harsh sunlight. Ahead lies the city that has called to conquerors for centuries, Babylon. But Babylon is no mere city, it is a symbol. Its walls rise like mountains from the plain, its towers stretch toward heaven, and its people walk beneath the shadow of eternity. Its priests speak the language of stars, and its temples have echoed with prayers since time before memory. It is said that whoever rules Babylon rules the heart of the world. You have come not to destroy that heart, but to awaken it. Word of your coming spreads faster than your armies. In the markets of Sippar, in the gardens of Borsippa, in the taverns along the Euphrates, your name stirs whispers of hope. For the people of Babylon, though, rich live beneath a king who no longer listens. King Nabonidus, proud, scholarly, and devout in his own way, has turned his face from Marduk, the chief god of Babylon, and devoted himself instead to the worship of Sin, the moon god. He has left the great city in the hands of his son Belshazzar, whose feasts are long and whose arrogance knows no limit. The priests of Marduk murmur in the night. The farmers pray by the river. The merchants taxed beyond measure look to the horizon where your banners gather. Babylon is weary of kings who serve themselves, and so, as your army crosses into Mesopotamia, the gods themselves seem to fall silent, as if waiting to see whether you will come as conqueror or deliverer. You travel slowly, methodically across the plain. Each town that lies along your path greets you not with resistance, but with open gates. You speak gently to their elders, promising no plunder, no fire, only freedom, to live and worship as they choose. At Opis, near the Tigris, Nabonidus finally sends his army to stand against you. The clash is brief, terrible, and decisive. The Babylonian troops, weary and disillusioned, cannot match the discipline of your soldiers. The river runs red beneath the bridges of Opis, and when the battle ends, your victory is complete. Yet you command your men to show mercy. No temples are looted, no women taken, no children slain. The priests of Marduk, hearing of this, send envoys to your camp bearing gifts and prayers. The gods have chosen you, they say. You shall enter Babylon not as destroyer, but as the one who restores order to the world. Days later, your army marches along the banks of the Euphrates. The sun beats down like molten bronze. Ahead, shimmering through the haze, rise the towers and walls of Babylon, walls said to be broad enough for chariots to race upon, and so tall that even birds seem small against them. Your generals, hardened by war, hesitate. No force, they whisper, has ever taken Babylon. Its gates are iron, its moats wide, its stores of food endless. Even the gods guard its walls. But you study the river. You notice how it winds through the city itself, entering through heavy bronze gates at either end. You see opportunity where others see impossibility. If Babylon cannot be taken by strength, you tell them, then it shall be taken by patience. You send your engineers to study the Euphrates, and together they form a plan born of both wisdom and daring. Downstream your men begin to dig wide canals that will divert the river's flow. When the time comes, they will open the trenches and let the waters sink low enough for your soldiers to march beneath the walls. That night, as your army works in silence, the city of Babylon feasts. Within its glittering halls, Prince Belshazzar drinks from golden vessels once taken from the Temple of Jerusalem. Laughter and music echo through the palace, while the priests uneasy murmur of omens in the stars. The book of Daniel will one day tell of this night, of a hand that appeared upon the wall, writing words no man could erase. Mene, mene, tekel, upharsin, numbered, weighed, and divided. And as the revelers stare in horror, the river outside the walls begins to fall. In the cool hours before dawn, your soldiers move silently along the dry riverbed. The moon glows silver upon the bronze gates at the river's edge, gates left unguarded by a people too certain of their invincibility. The hinges creak softly as your men push them open. When the sun rises, the city of Babylon is already yours. The streets are quiet, the walls untouched. There is no fire, no ruin, no sack. The people wake, not to screams, but to silence, to the strange and unfamiliar peace of victory without war. You enter the city riding not in triumph, but in solemnity. The priests of Marduk come forth carrying flowers and incense. They lead you to the great temple of Esagila, where the golden statue of the god stands gleaming in the half-light. There, before the gathered people, you kneel. I, Cyrus, chosen of the gods, king of Babylon, and the four corners of the earth, you declare, have come by the will of Marduk to restore peace. Let the temples of all lands be rebuilt, and let every captive return to his home. The crowd erupts in tears and joy. They call you the shepherd king, the liberator, the beloved of Marduk. In the days that follow, you walk through the streets of Babylon, marveling at its beauty. The hanging gardens said to reach the heavens themselves cascade with vines and flowers. The ziggurat of Etemenanki towers like a mountain of clay, its summit lost in the clouds. Along the processional way, lions carved in stone seem to roar as you pass, yet what moves you most is not the grandeur, but the gratitude. The people bow not in fear, but in reverence. The elders bless your name, the priests sing your praises, and foreign captives, men and women, from distant lands cry with hope. You have seen many cities rise and fall, but never one reborn so swiftly through mercy. As night falls, you stand upon the balcony of the royal palace, overlooking the river that once defended Babylon and now flows gently beneath your rule. The stars shimmer on its surface like scattered jewels. You think of all that has come to pass, the shepherd's hills, the wars of Media and Lydia, the roads of Sardis, and realize that this moment, this peace, is the culmination of every path you have walked. You close your eyes and whisper to the wind, "The gods gave me victory, but I pray they grant me wisdom to rule it well." The river answers with the faint sound of rippling water, as if Marduk himself is listening. The fall of Babylon, 539 BC. The morning after Babylon surrenders, the sun rises over the city's golden roofs, flooding its walls and temples in soft light. The air is still almost reverent, as if even the winds hesitate to disturb what has just been born a peace so rare it feels divine. The war that should have scarred a civilization has ended without ruin. The great capital of Mesopotamia, unconquered for 1,000 years, has opened its gates not to fire and blood, but to hope. You, Cyrus, walk slowly through its streets, your sandals brushing against the ancient stones, worn smooth by the feet of kings long gone. The people bow as you pass, not with the fear of the defeated, but with the calm relief of the delivered. They see in you something unfamiliar, a conqueror who does not destroy. All around Babylon still breathes, its markets hum with cautious energy, merchants sweep dust from their stalls, setting out spices, silks, and clay jars of oil. The priests burn incense at dawn, thanking Marduk for his mercy. The Euphrates glitters quietly beneath its bridges as if washing away the memory of its own betrayal. You have seen many cities rise and fall, but none as magnificent as this. The walls stretch higher than the towers of Ecbatana. The processional way glows with blue glazed brick, and at its end stands the Ishtar Gate, colossal, radiant, alive with images of dragons and bulls. It feels less like a city than a living god. In the great temple of Esagila, where Marduk once stood, neglected under the reign of Nabonidus, you kneel before the high priests. They chant blessings in the old Sumerian tongue, and their leader, an aged man robed in white and gold, raises his hands and speaks. The god has searched the lands and found one righteous ruler. The heart of Marduk turned away from Nabonidus, who forgot his people, and found favor instead in Cyrus, the chosen of heaven. You lower your head in humility. Though your heart honors Ahura Mazda, you have long understood that the gods of men wear many names, and all light springs from one flame. You do not reject their praise, you sanctify it. If Marduk blesses me, you say softly, let his blessing fall upon all who live beneath his sky. The god of Babylon and the god of Persia are brothers in light. The priests bow deeply. The crowd gathered beyond the temple walls weeps with joy. That night Babylon celebrates not its fall but its renewal. You decree that no homes be looted, no women taken, no shrines defiled. The Babylonian scribes, astounded, record your orders upon clay tablets. Cyrus, they write, has entered Babylon in peace. He commands that the people be free, that worship continue, and that justice return to the land. The palace treasury is opened, but not for plunder. You gather the gold and silver once hoarded by Nabonidus and send it back to the temples of the gods he had abandoned. You summon artisans to repair statues and altars long left in decay. One evening you visit the ziggurat of Etemenanke, said to be the Tower of Babel of ancient legend. The steps stretch upward into mist, and as you ascend, each level opens to the view of a city reborn. From the top, Babylon lies before you like a sea of light. You speak to your advisors. Let this be remembered not as a conquest but as a return. The world does not need new masters. It needs those who will protect what is sacred. As weeks pass, your authority takes root. The empire now stretches farther than any before it, from the shores of the Aegean to the mountains of Elam, from the plains of Lydia to the fertile valleys of Mesopotamia. And yet the people do not groan beneath your rule. They prosper. You meet with the elders of every tribe and faith, the Chaldeans, the Arameans, the Jews, exiled from Jerusalem decades earlier. Among them walks the aged prophet Daniel, who bows before you with reverence and gratitude. He speaks of the days when his people were taken from their home, when their temple was torn down by Babylon's armies, when they sang songs of mourning beside the river's edge. His voice trembles when he says, "The Lord has sent you, O King, as deliverer. You are the anointed of the Most High." You listen quietly, your eyes warm with understanding. You have seen the sorrow of captivity before. You know what it means to long for home. Then your exile ends. Today you tell him, return to Jerusalem, rebuild your temple, worship your God in peace. No one under my rule shall serve in chains. That decree, the Edict of Cyrus, spread swiftly through the empire. Written upon clay and cylinder, It will endure through ages to come. It declares freedom of worship, restoration of lands, and protection for all peoples of the realm. The Jews lift their hands toward heaven and weep for joy. Across deserts and mountains they carry your name as both King and Saviour. The Babylonians carve your words upon stone in their own tongue. The Persians carry them home on bronze tablets. You have done what no empire before dared, to unite nations through mercy, to rule, not by terror, but by trust. Your scribes will later write upon a cylinder of baked clay, sealed with your royal mark, I am Cyrus, king of the world, king of Babylon, king of the four corners of the earth. I returned the images of the gods to their sanctuaries, restored the walls, and gathered the people in peace. Millennia from now, men will call this the world's first declaration of human rights. But tonight you walk the quiet courtyards of Babylon alone. The air is cool, scented with myrrh and river reeds. Torches flicker along the garden paths where vines and cypresses climb toward the stars. You can hear the faint murmur of music drifting from the city below, harps, flutes, and the low rhythm of drums echoing through the night. You pause by a pool of still water. Your reflection shimmers in the light. Older now, your beard streaked with silver, your eyes clear but shadowed by memory. You think of the shepherd who once cradled you in the mountains of your mother's trembling hands, of the battles that brought you here. All kings die, you remind yourself. But the world, if wisely guided, may yet live on in peace. You raise your eyes toward the heavens and whisper, Ahura Mazda, Lord of Light, if I have served your truth, let the fire endure after me. Let the law of kindness outlive the sword. A warm wind stirs the torches, and the flames rise higher, as though the gods themselves answer. At dawn, the city wakes to a new age. Priests climb the temple steps to greet the rising sun. Merchants lift their shutters. Children run through streets that were once choked by fear. And from the walls of Babylon your soldiers watch the golden plains stretch endlessly toward the horizon. An empire of faiths, tongues, and dreams has been born, an empire bound not by fear, but by trust. The world calls you Cyrus the Great, but the people call you something more enduring, the King of Peace. The Edict of Freedom. The morning sun pours over the great walls of Babylon like molten gold. The ziggurats gleam, the gardens shimmer, and the air hums with a new rhythm, one of rebuilding, of renewal, of hope. You, Cyrus, stand upon the balcony of the royal palace, the Euphrates flowing below like a silver serpent, winding through the heart of your newly united world. The war drums are silent now. Only the sound of chisels and hammers fills the air, as workers repair temples, mend bridges, and restore statues once torn down by neglect. The people move with purpose. The air feels lighter, as if the city itself is breathing again. You have conquered Babylon, but you do not call yourself its conqueror. You call yourself its restorer. Messengers from every corner of the empire arrive at your gates, their robes coated in dust, their faces alight with gratitude. From the mountains of Elam, from the plains of Media, from the coastlines of the Aegean, they bring offerings and words of praise. The priests of Marduk, of Ishtar, of Shamash, all proclaim your name in their temples, and among them stand others, foreigners, who have travelled far, their garments simple, but their eyes filled with tears. They are the exiled people of Judah. It has been nearly 70 years since their city fell, to Babylon since the Temple of Solomon was destroyed and their people scattered. They have sung their psalms by the rivers of captivity, their harps silent in the willows. Now they kneel before you, the ruler of the empire that once enslaved them. Their elders speak, O King, anointed by the Most High, we have waited for deliverance. The Lord of Israel has spoken your name. He has called you his shepherd, who will fulfill his purpose. He has said, he shall rebuild my city and set my people free. The chamber falls silent. You study their faces lined with years of sorrow, yet radiant with hope. You think of all the gods and peoples under your rule, of how each sees the divine in his own light. You believe truly that all faiths reflect one eternal truth, that freedom is sacred, and that no man can honor the heavens while living in chains. You rise from your throne and speak gently. The Lord of heaven, by whatever name he is known, desires justice. Let his will be done. And with those words you issue your decree, the Edict of Freedom. You summon your royal scribe, and together you compose the words that will echo through centuries. The clay is wet soft beneath your hand as you dictate. Thus says Cyrus, King of kings, chosen of the great Lord, ruler of the world, all the kingdoms of the earth have been given to me by the Most High. It is his will that I build him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Let all his people, wherever they dwell, arise and go up to Jerusalem, and let each man be free to worship his God in his own land. Let their temples be restored, their treasures returned, and their altars rebuilt in peace. The stylus carves each line into clay, the marks drying under the sun, a promise eternal as stone. You seal the decree with your royal emblem, a winged human figure, half divine, half mortal, the symbol of harmony between heaven and earth. The scribe presents the tablet to you. You lift it high before the court, declaring, no people shall live in exile while Cyrus reigns. The news spreads like light through shadow. In the streets of Babylon the Jews weep with joy. In distant lands, in Samaria, Jerusalem, and beyond, families pack their belongings and begin the long journey home. You watch them depart, long caravans of men, women, and children crossing the plains, carrying torches and scrolls, singing songs of return. You send guards to protect them, horses for their elderly, and gold to rebuild their temples. In time, word reaches you from the west. The foundations of the second temple have been laid in Jerusalem, and the priests have offered prayers in your name. They call you Mashiach, the anointed of their God, not a title of kingship, but of divine mission. You feel the weight of it not as pride, but as sacred duty. You have become a bridge between worlds, between gods, between nations, between men and their faith. In the following weeks, you hold counsel with your advisors. Some question your generosity. My king, one noble, says, if you free every captive, what will remain of our dominion, mercy may weaken the crown. You turn to him calmly. Mercy strengthens the crown, you reply. A man who serves by fear serves falsely. A man who serves by choice serves forever. Let the world see that Persia rules not by chains, but by justice. Harpagus, your old general, smiles faintly from his place at the table. You have turned empire into faith, he says. Not faith, you answer. Order, the divine order of truth, Asher, that which keeps the world in balance. They nod, though not all understand. Few ever do. Yet they will follow you, because the truth of your vision burns brighter than any sword. At night, in the gardens of Babylon, you walk among the cypresses, the scent of myrrh rising from the earth. The stars shimmer above, the same stars your ancestors gazed upon in Anshan, the same constellations that guided the magi and the priests of every temple from Egypt to Susa. You feel the threads of destiny woven through them all, binding the world in unseen light. You pause by the river, watching its reflection flicker with the torches of passing boats. In the ripples, you see both Babylon and Jerusalem, the old gods and the new, the conquered and the free, all flowing together into one eternal stream. You think of what it means to be called great, not in power, not in conquest, but in mercy. You whisper to the night, "If I am to be remembered, let it be as one who freed, not one who ruled." The wind stirs softly, carrying your words across the water, and in that moment you feel at peace. When dawn comes, the courtyards of Babylon fill with the sound of hammers and song. Caravans depart for distant lands, bearing the seal of Cyrus, the promise of freedom. The city shines under the rising sun, and from the temple of Marduk to the gates of Ishtar, prayers rise in every tongue. You look upon them from your balcony, a faint smile crossing your face. The work is not finished, perhaps it never will be, but you have set the foundation of something greater than empire, an order where kings rule with compassion, where gods are many, but truth is one, and where the light of justice burns brighter than the fires of war. And as the morning light spreads across the empire, you whisper one final vow: "So long as I live, no man shall bow unwillingly under heaven's sky." The laws of justice and the faith of the fire. The years after Babylon's fall become years of harmony and order. The winds of empire carry not the scent of burning cities, but the hum of trade song and prayer. From the Indus to the Aegean, from the mountains of Media to the valleys of Mesopotamia, your name, Cyrus, flows through every tongue as a symbol of fairness and peace. You ride not as a conqueror now, but as a lawgiver. Each step of your journey takes you deeper into the heart of the world you have created. Villagers kneel as you pass, not from fear, but from respect. In their eyes you see trust, something no army can command and no gold can buy. But peace, like a flame, must be tended. And so you turn your mind to the greater work, the shaping of law, and the spirit that sustains it. You establish new courts across the empire where men of every province can bring their grievances before impartial judges. You choose your magistrates not from noble families, but from among the wise and the just men known for honesty rather than birth. When the first disputes arise between Persians and Babylonians, your decision sets the tone for all who will follow. You declare that each people shall live under the customs of their ancestors, and that no judge shall dishonor the gods of another. An empire of many lands you proclaim must be one in spirit, but diverse in soul. Let the law serve the people, not enslave them. The people rejoice. Across the empire, artisans carve your decrees into claystone and parchment. Messengers carry them along the royal roads, spreading justice like seeds cast by the wind. Within the halls of Pasargadae, you convene your council of sages, priests of Ahura Mazda, astronomers of Babylon, philosophers from Lydia, and scribes from Elam. Their robes shimmer like the horizon, woven from every color of the realm. Together you draft the charter that will guide the empire's heart. It is not written in the language of conquest, but in the language of truth. Asher, the eternal order of the universe as revealed by Ahura Mazda. The Zoroastrian priests speak first, their voices calm as running water. They remind you that Asher is the harmony of creation, the divine pattern that separates truth from the lie, light from darkness. You listen and nod. Then let our empire serve Asher, you say, for no man can rule wisely who walks in falsehood. From that day your seal bears the inscription, by the favor of Ahura Mazda, Cyrus the king brings order to the world. You build fire temples across Persia, not temples of idols or gold, but of purity and flame. The sacred fire burns upon their altars, tended day and night by priests in white robes. Its light represents truth, its smoke, the prayers of the faithful rising toward heaven. At dawn, you often visit the temple near your palace. You enter barefoot, the marble cool beneath your feet. The priests bow, and the fire crackles softly as if greeting an old friend. You kneel before it, and the warm glow bathes your face. In the stillness, you feel the presence of something greater, the rhythm of the universe itself. You whisper your prayer, Ahura Mazda, Lord of Light, let my deeds reflect your truth. Let me rule not as master, but as servant of order. May my justice be as constant as your flame. The priests chant the Gathas, the ancient hymns of Zarathustra. The words echo through the chamber, simple and pure. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds. You rise with a heart at peace. News spreads of your faith and fairness. Ambassadors from distant lands come to your court bearing gifts and questions. Egyptians speak of their gods and pharaohs, Greeks of their philosophers, and Jews of their prophets. You welcome them all. One Greek envoy, astonished by your humility, asks, "How does a man who rules the world live so simply?" You smile. Because I serve a greater king, the truth itself. Power is a shadow. Only virtue endures. Another curious asks, do you not fear rebellion? When each man may worship as he wills, you answer, a man who prays freely will not raise his sword against the hand that freed him. Your words spread through foreign lands like the gentle roll of thunder. Philosophers and scholars record them, merchants repeat them at taverns, and priests teach them beside their altars. Even the enemies who once plotted against you begin to see the wisdom in your rule. One evening, you return to Babylon, where the fires of the Edict of Freedom still burn brightly. You walk through the gardens, you restored the air, thick with the perfume of cypress and jasmine. The Euphrates murmurs beside you, a sound as eternal as time. Your advisor, Gobryas, approaches. His face is lined with age and loyalty. My king, he says, the scribes have finished the cylinder you commanded. It bears all your laws, the rights of men, the honor of gods, the promise of peace. Shall we send it to the corners of the empire? You take the clay cylinder in your hands. Its surface is etched with lines of cuneiform, each stroke a fragment of your legacy. Send it, you say. Let every ruler after me remember that strength without mercy is dust, and law without compassion is tyranny. You hold it to the firelight, watching the shadows play across its surface. It glows softly, like a small sun. That night, as you look upon the stars from your balcony, the city below flickers with 1,000 lamps. Each flame seems to mirror the sacred fire, the same eternal light reflected in countless homes and hearts. You think of how far the world has come. Once divided by greed and fear, it now moves under a single law, the law of truth. The empires before you ruled with iron, yours endures through faith. You close your eyes and recall the teachings of Zarathustra, that every man by his choices helps the world move toward light or toward darkness. You pray that in your time you have tilted the balance toward light. And somewhere beyond the horizon where caravans travel and temples rise, the people of your empire kneel before their own fires. Persians, Babylonians, Jews, Lydians, all united beneath the unseen flame you have kindled. In the silence of night, your voice murmurs softly to the stars, "Let the law live beyond me. Let justice burn where my hand no longer reaches. Let every man who speaks truth be part of the same fire." The wind carries your words away, scattering them like embers across the world. And in those embers a civilization glows, bright, enduring, and just. The Eastern campaigns. The years pass gently like a steady current under a calm river's surface. Your empire. Cyrus now spans horizons once thought unreachable. From the Mediterranean's blue coasts to the mountains beyond the Oxus River, your roads pulse with life. Merchants, pilgrims, and soldiers carrying the same emblem, the winged lion of Persia, the symbol of unity and peace. Yet even in this vastness your heart is not content to rest, for beyond your empire's eastern borders lies another world wild, distant, and untamed. The lands of Parthia, Sogdia, and Bactria stretch beneath the endless sky, where tribes of horsemen ride like storms across the steppe. Beyond them rise the high plateaus where dawn greets the snows of the Hindu Kush. These are lands of mystery, wealth, and danger, lands that do not yet know the light of your law. You summon your generals to council beneath the cedar beams of your palace in Pasargadae. The air smells of dust and incense. Around you stand men who have followed you since Anshan warriors, now grey with age, yet unbroken in spirit, Harpagus, Gubrias, and Mazares. You unroll a map before them, its edges frayed by years of conquest. Your finger traces the far eastern border. These lands, you say quietly, lie beyond our reach, yet they threaten our peace. The nomads of the East raid our caravans and mock our roads. They bow to no law, no God, no reason. But if we bring them order, trade will flourish, and the empire will rest secure. Harpagus bows his head. The East is vast, my king, he warns. There are no walls to hold it, no cities to claim. You smile faintly. Then we will not claim it, we will awaken it. In the spring the drums of Persia sound once more. The army gathers at Ecbatana, thousands, strong Persians, Medes, Babylonians, and Lydians marching under the same banner. The horses are sleek and restless, their breath misting in the cold dawn. As you mount your steed, the soldiers cheer your name, their voices rolling like thunder over the hills. The march eastward begins. Through mountain passes and salt deserts, you ride where the earth glows red beneath the sun, and the stars blaze brighter than in any other sky. At night, the campfires flicker like constellations scattered across the ground. You ride among your men, speaking with them not as a distant ruler, but as a comrade. Why do we go so far? One young soldier asks. Because peace must be protected, you answer. And peace cannot last if danger sleeps at its door. The man nods, comforted. It is a lesson your people will remember long after your bones are dust. In Parthia, the tribes meet your armies with arrows and shouts. Their horsemen are swift, vanishing into the desert like smoke. For days they harass your flanks, never fighting long enough to be caught. Yet you do not chase them blindly. You study their patterns, their movements, the rhythm of their wind-borne war. Then one morning you strike back. Your men feign retreat, drawing the Parthians into pursuit. When the tribes rush forward, eager for easy victory, you turn the army like a river, bending to crush its banks. The desert explodes with motion-dust hooves and the cry of steel. By midday, the Parthian king himself kneels before you, his warriors scattered like leaves. But you do not kill him. Instead, you lift him to his feet. You fought with courage, you tell him. Now fight with purpose. Serve not fear, but law. Ride beneath the banners of Persia, and your people shall live in peace. He hesitates, then nods. The tribes of Parthia submit not in defeat, but in alliance. You grant them autonomy, allowing their chieftains to rule under Persian protection. Thus the empire grows not through blood, but through trust. From Parthia, you move eastward, crossing the Oxus River, into Bactria, a land of gold and turquoise, of fertile valleys and fierce defenders. The Bactrians, proud and disciplined, stand behind their walls with shields of bronze and spears of ash. They are not raiders like the nomads, but a kingdom ancient and proud. For weeks your armies encircle their capital. The siege wears on neither side, yielding. The sun burns, food dwindles, tempers rise. Then one night you climb the nearby ridge, alone, standing beneath the pale light of the stars. Below, the fires of two nations flicker, yours and theirs, enemies, separated only by pride. You close your eyes and whisper a prayer to Ahura Mazda. Grant me wisdom greater than the sword. Let victory come through justice, not slaughter. The next morning, you send envoys to the Bactrian king, bearing no threat, only words. I do not come to destroy your city, your letter reads. I come to make it eternal. Join us, and your name shall live beside mine. Resist, and both will fade in ruin. The message reaches him before noon. By sunset, the gates of Bactria open. The people pour out, carrying flowers, not weapons. The king kneels and offers his crown. You refuse it, placing it back upon his brow. Keep it, you tell him. A king who surrenders to truth need not bow to me. From that moment, Bactria becomes a jewel of the empire, a bridge between Persia and the lands beyond. Its scholars will one day help shape the Silk Road that connects east and west. Months turn into years as your armies press deeper into the unknown. You reach the edges of Central Asia, where the land becomes wild and the horizon endless. You see snow-capped mountains whose peaks pierce the clouds, rivers that vanish into sand, and tribes whose languages no interpreter can yet understand. Everywhere you go, you plant seeds of order. Forts rise along rivers, roads carve paths through wilderness, and trade routes begin to hum with the exchange of goods and ideas. The empire becomes not a cage, but a living network, woven by your hand into the pattern of Asher. One night in your tent beneath a starlit sky, you speak with Gobryas as the desert wind sighs around you. Do you think the gods will forgive our conquests, you ask quietly. Gobryas, ever wise, looks toward the horizon. If conquest brings peace, then perhaps the gods see it not as taking, but as giving. You smile faintly. Then I pray I have given more than I have taken. When at last you return westward, the empire stretches farther than any before it. The roads run unbroken from the Aegean to the mountains of Bactria. The temples of every faith burn their sacred fires in harmony. You have become the axis around which the world turns. Yet as you cross the plains of Persia once more, you feel the weight of years pressing upon you. Your beard is silver now, your voice softer, but your resolve is undimmed. You think not of conquest anymore, but of the legacy that will remain after you, law's faith, and the eternal flame of truth that will outlive empires. The sun sets behind you, casting your shadow long across the earth. You have brought order to the east, not by fire, but by light. And though the road ahead grows shorter, you walk it with the calm of a man who has fulfilled the work the gods gave him. The final battle on the frontier. The year is near its end. The empire lies vast and shining, beneath the sun the mightiest the world has ever known. From Sardis to Sogdia, from Babylon to the Indus, your roads stretch like veins through the living earth. Traders cross deserts in peace, kings rule under your law, and the sacred fires of Ahura Mazda burn bright in every city. And yet Cyrus, the call of destiny, has not gone silent. Beyond the farthest eastern reaches of your dominion lies a land few Persians have seen, the endless steppe where the horizon itself seems to move. There, under the pale skies of the frontier, live fierce tribes unbowed by empire, the Achaemenid masters of horse and bow, whose queen Tomiris rules with wisdom and wrath. They are said to drink the blood of their enemies, to worship the sun, and to bow to no king but death itself. Their raids have begun to trouble the border settlements of your empire. Caravans vanish in the mist. Messengers return with arrows in their backs. You are old now, but your heart still burns with the same quiet fire that led you from shepherds' fields to Babylon's throne. The world must be whole, you tell yourself, not divided by fear. And so, though your counselors beg you to rest, you take up your armor one last time. Winter approaches as your army marches north across the Oxus River. The land changes, grasslands ripple like waves, and the air smells of snow. Herds of wild horses graze under the open sky. At night, the stars blaze so bright they seem close enough to touch. You ride in silence beside your generals Harpagus and Gobryas, both grey-haired now, both weary but loyal. Behind you stretches an army of Persians hardened by decades of war. Yet there is a stillness among them, as if all know this campaign will be the last. Around your campfires men speak softly of omens, a comet seen over Babylon, an eagle found dead beside the Tigris. The priests whisper that Ahura Mazda tests you not through conquest but through humility. You do not fear the signs. You have lived your life walking between the will of gods and men. If this is your final trial, then you will face it with open eyes. A messenger arrives from the Achaemenid with words from their queen. She sends a warning carried across the steppes on parchment sealed with wax. O Cyrus, King of Kings, I know your hunger. Turn back and rule what you have, for if you cross my lands, though you be the greatest of men, I will give you your fill of blood. You read the message aloud by the campfire. The generals watch your face, waiting for your command. You fold the parchment and place it gently into the flames. If the gods will it, you say softly, then let my blood water the soil of truth. The next morning, you cross the frontier. The first skirmishes come quickly. The Achaemenid fight like no army you have ever faced, swift as shadows, fierce as flame. They appear at dawn, showering arrows from horseback, then vanish before your men can form ranks. Their horses are lean and tireless. their weapons simple but deadly. You win the first battle through cunning. You leave behind a camp filled with food and wine, and when Tomiris's warriors descend to plunder it, your men strike from hiding. The slaughter is swift and merciless. Among the slain is the queen's son, Spargopaises, a warrior prince who had led the attack. When you learn who he was, your heart grows heavy. You order that his body be treated with honor and returned to the queen. But grief can ignite greater fire than vengeance ever could. Tomiris's reply comes not as words but as war. At sunrise her armies descend upon your camp like a living storm. The ground shakes beneath thousands of horses, the air fills with the whistle of arrows, spears glitter like starlight, and the clash of bronze echoes across the plain. You fight not from your chariot but on foot among your soldiers, your sword flashing, your voice steady. Around you the Persians stand firm shields, locked their faith in you unbroken. The battle surges like the sea, each wave of riders breaking upon your line. Hours pass. The sun rises, then begins to fall. The snow turns red beneath your feet. At last, the Massagetae break through. The cavalry sweeps in from both sides and chaos consumes the field. You raise your banner high so your men may see it. Even as the enemy closes in, you do not falter. Hold you shout. The light still burns, the truth still stands, and for a moment it does. The Persians rally, pushing back the tide, but age and exhaustion weigh upon you. Your sword arm grows heavy, your breath shallow. Then amid the tumult an arrow finds your side. You stagger but do not fall. Blood stains your robes, the red of dawn on the white of snow. You press a trembling hand to your wound and look toward the horizon. The sky is vast and endless, the same sky under which you were born. As darkness closes in, your generals find you sitting upon a broken stone, the wind tugging at your cloak. You are calm, your eyes clear. Do not weep, you tell them. No man rules forever. What we build in truth will outlive the flesh. They kneel beside you, but you raise a hand. Tell my sons this, keep faith with the law, not the sword. The empire must not be a throne of gold, but a torch of light. The wind carries your voice over the plains, soft and steady, until it fades into the endless night. When the battle ends, both armies lie scattered. Tomiris finds your body herself upon the field. She orders it to be honored, not desecrated, for even in vengeance she recognizes greatness. She lifts her eyes to the sky and says quietly, "He was a king unlike any other." Your soldiers carry you home across deserts and mountains, their hearts heavy but proud. They bury you in Pasargadae, in a simple tomb of white stone surrounded by gardens. Upon the door, they carve your name and these words, "O man, whoever you are and wherever you come from, I am Cyrus, who founded the Persian Empire and ruled the world. Do not grieve, but admire the work of a mortal who loved truth." Centuries later, Alexander the Great will kneel before that tomb and weep, whispering that no king will ever equal you. But tonight, as the fires of battle fade and the stars rise once more above the steppe, the world grows quiet again. You have returned to the sky that watched your birth. And though your heart is still, your vision burns on an empire of light, justice, and peace, shining forever in the memory of humankind. The legacy of the great king. The years drift onward like a gentle wind over sand. Empires rise and crumble, kings are crowned, and forgotten cities are built and turned to dust, but your name, Cyrus, endures, long after your bones have rested beneath the white stone of Pasargadae. Your voice still seems to echo in the halls of history. The Persians call you Kurush, the Great Father. The Babylonians remember you as the Liberator. The Hebrews know you as the Anointed of the Lord. And the Greeks, who will one day challenge your descendants, will write of you as the most just and noble of all kings. Though your body lies silent, the empire you forged continues to breathe. Pasargadae, your resting place, stands serene in the Persian plain, surrounded by orchards of pomegranate and fig. The air hums with bees, the scent of myrtle and jasmine drifting between the stone walls. Travelers come from distant lands to stand before your tomb, a simple, dignified house upon a platform of 6 steps. There are no towering statues, no golden idols, no armies of stone. Only the whisper of the wind and the murmur of the stream that flows nearby. On the door, carved in quiet humility, are the words you commanded to be written. O man, whoever you are and wherever you come from, I am Cyrus, who founded the Persian Empire and was king of Asia. Do not envy me, but admire the work I leave behind. Pilgrims read those lines and bow in silence. They bring flowers or a handful of soil from their homeland and lay it at your steps, for they know that your empire was not just of borders but of hearts. Under your heirs, the Achaemenid Empire grows even greater. Your son Cambyses the soon inherits your throne and carries your standard to Egypt, fulfilling the old dream of uniting the East and West beneath one crown. After him comes Darius the Great, who expands the empire to the edge of the known world and engraves your principles into law. Even those who rule after you men, whose ambitions burn hotter than wisdom, cannot erase the foundation you laid. They rule from the empire you built, travel along the roads you carved, and administer justice through the laws you wrote. Your legacy becomes the model of kingship itself. When rulers of foreign lands debate how a just monarch should reign, they invoke your name. When priests argue over the nature of divine favor, they remember that Cyrus honored every god, seeing in each faith a reflection of truth. And when philosophers seek to understand the bond between freedom and law, they look to your decrees, the first to say that men of all nations should worship as their hearts command. In Babylon, the elders still speak of the day you entered the city without bloodshed, restoring its temples and freeing its captives. In Jerusalem, the descendants of the exiles tell their children the story of the king who let them return and rebuild the temple of the Lord. In Greece, historians write of your wisdom and restraint, calling you a king more beloved than feared. Even Alexander, centuries later when he conquers Persia, stands before your tomb in reverence. The wind stirs his cloak as he kneels, head bowed. His soldiers say he wept, whispering that he hoped to rule as wisely as you once did. If I cannot equal you in life, he said, then let me honor you in death. Your spirit lives not only in monuments, but in the hearts of men. The charter you left behind, the clay cylinder that bears your words, is treasured for ages. It will one day be found buried in the ruins of Babylon, and scholars of distant centuries will marvel at its message. I returned the gods to their sanctuaries. I gathered the scattered people and restored their homes. I put an end to oppression and war. I am Cyrus, King of Kings. They will call it the first declaration of human rights. And even in a world far removed from your own, where empires no longer wear crowns and kings no longer kneel to gods, your vision of tolerance, justice, and peace will still burn quietly like the eternal flame of Ahura Mazda that once lit your temples. But the truest legacy of Cyrus the Great is not written in stone or law, it is written in the souls of those who came after. In every ruler who chooses mercy over vengeance, in every judge who weighs truth above gold, in every people who see not enemies but neighbors. That is the world you dreamed of, the empire that cannot crumble. At Pasargadae, the seasons turn as they always have. Spring brings the bloom of roses along the garden paths. Summer hums with cicadas in the tall grass. In autumn the leaves fall softly upon your tomb, whispering the colors of the world you united. And when winter comes, snow dusts the roof of your resting place a white crown upon the stone. Yet within that silence, something eternal lingers. Travelers who come at dawn swear they hear the wind speaking softly through the fig trees as if the land itself remembers your voice. They say it murmurs words of peace, words that belong not to any one nation but to all humanity. Rule with wisdom. Live with kindness. Leave the world better than you found it. And perhaps beyond time, beyond the boundaries of earth and sky, your spirit walks the roads of your empire still. The same roads you built so that all peoples might meet, not as conquerors, but as companions. The fires that burn in the temples, the prayers whispered by every faith, the laughter of children born into freedom, all these are the breath of your eternal dominion. You are no longer a man of flesh, but a vision, a guiding light. The shepherd of nations, the builder of bridges, the father of kings. Your empire of mercy endures not in the marble of palaces, but in the quiet hearts of those who still believe that justice above all is divine. And as the stars rise over the Persian plains, their glow shimmering upon your white tomb, it seems as though the heavens themselves keep vigil, eternal guardians of the dream that once began beneath the same boundless sky.